Welcome into Brewers Daily. I'm your host, Dave Gasper, with you every single day, covering our favorite team, the Milwaukee Brewers. Lots to get to on the show today. We are just a week away from MLB's winter meetings, where we're going to see all sorts of activity happening across the board. We've already seen some big names go off and sign with their new teams. We just saw another one go over the holiday weekend here, so we'll get to that coming up later on in the show. But also some stuff over the past couple of days that came out regarding the Milwaukee Brewers themselves, which is where I want to start here with kind of the big news from my friend Kurt Hogue of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel that he put out there in a mailbag the other day, that the Brewers and extension talks with Jacob Misiorowski have yet to gain any traction. That the Brewers are definitely willing to talk, willing to listen, but there's nothing really moving on that front with Jacob Misiorowski in terms of a contract extension. Now, some may look at this and say, oh my goodness, this is terrible, they're going to lose him, whatever. Me, I'm not surprised by this at all. And if you're surprised by this, I'm more surprised by that. I'm more surprised if anyone is surprised by this. Because, frankly, Misiorowski, his first season in Milwaukee, yes, he was an all-star in his first year after making just 5 appearances. But also, the way certainly he ended the regular season, he had a 4.36 ERA in 15 games. So, it was nothing. Like, yes, he had all the hype, all the strikeouts, all the crazy, insane stuff. But he did end up getting hit around the ballpark a little bit as the season went on. So he wasn't consistently dominant through and through. Now, he was fantastic in the postseason, to be sure. But seeing extension talks yet to gain traction with Misiorowski is not surprising in the slightest in terms of what the Brewers are going to be willing to pay, because he is a pitcher. So the Brewers are going to be a little bit more cautious in terms of paying a pitcher long-term money, especially with his kind of explosive stuff. There is still a lot of reliever risk with Jacob Misiorowski. So I think the valuation that the Brewers are going to have and the valuation that Jacob Misiorowski is going to have are going to be completely different, because Misiorowski and his camp, they're going to be looking at it and say, hey, okay, if you want an extension, you're going to be paying us starter-type money here. And for the Brewers, they're going to be like, we'll pay you, maybe if you turn out, it'll be decent starter cash, but there's also that reliever risk. So it's got to be something where even if you are a reliever, we're going to be comfortable paying you that money to be a reliever. Very similar to what the Brewers did with Freddie Peralta. Back when Peralta, when they signed him to his 5-year extension, they didn't know if he was going to be a starter or a reliever at that point in 2020. They didn't know. Now, granted, he's turned out to be a starter this whole time, and he's been the ace of the staff the last couple of seasons, and it's been an absolute bargain for the Brewers, but they signed him to a 5-year, $15 million deal. And then a few years later, they signed Aaron Ashby to a 5-year, $20.5 million deal. Again, someone who was a top prospect at the time, someone who had a bunch of hype, but they still weren't quite sure if he was going to be a starter or a reliever when he came up. He wasn't super dominant out of the gate. There were still some questions about what his ultimate role was going to be. So I think if the Brewers are going to explore any sort of extension for Jacob Misiorowski, they're going to be looking for something in that level, in that Aaron Ashby type price range for the next 5-6 years, basically buy out his arbitration years and his pre-arb years, lock in what that money's going to be. But it's going to be, somewhere probably in a $20 to $30 million range that the Brewers are looking for over those 5 years. Misiorowski really has no reason to kind of accept that over these years. With arbitration, what he could make, and it could delay his free agency a bit further, which could hurt his earning power in future years, because if he does stay at a starter at this pace, he could be getting a $200 million contract. So I think for Jacob Misiorowski, if he's looking at an extension at this early stage in his career, he'd be more targeting the Spencer Strider type contract extension. Now, Strider signed with the Atlanta Braves for 6 years and $75 million. When he came out of the gate, incredibly dominant for them, but he was pre-arbitration when he signed that extension. So I think that'd more be his comp, his price range that he'd be looking for if a deal were to happen now. And the Brewers would be looking at about a third of that, which is kind of understandable how these talks have yet to really gain any traction. If that's what Mizraowski's likely expecting. Now, this is not really inside knowledge. Okay, this is not saying this is what Mizraowski's looking at, but that is kind of a pretty decent comp to make in terms of pitchers who have signed extensions like this at this early stage in their career. Those are really kind of the comps to look at. I would expect the Brewers to be more on the end where they got Ashby and Freddie done for $15 to $20 million, and Miz is more likely going to be looking at the Spencer Strider comp, because if Miz was willing to sign for kind of more of the Ashby type money where it's $20 to $30 million, I think that deal would have gotten done by now. So the fact that they've yet to gain any traction is a pretty good sign that there's quite a difference in terms of any sort of idea of what an extension could look like. So I'm not expecting one to get done. The Brewers, and paying long-term for pitching, it's so difficult for them because they know how dangerous pitching is, how you're going to see these guys get arm injuries at some point, especially such a high-octane arm as Jacob Mizraowski. An arm injury is most likely going to happen at some point, no matter how careful they are with him, no matter how careful he is. An arm injury is likely just bound to happen with the sheer stuff that he has. So putting a massive investment on him long term can be incredibly risky and dangerous, and the Brewers don't generally like to play those kinds of games. And that's where they will go for 5 years and a couple of club options for guys like Freddie and Ashby coming up. But if the player's not willing to accept that kind of a deal just to lock in that kind of money, then I don't think you're going to see a deal get done. So extension talks not gaining traction is not really a surprise to me in the slightest, just with where he's at, which kind of makes me wonder in general, why would either side sign an extension right now? Because it was a bit of a surprise to me to see the report. Now, granted, I'm sure it was a mailbag with Kurt Hogue, so someone asked, hey, could an extension happen with Mizraowski, because he was so good when he came up. He was an all-star. So, yeah, makes sense. Okay, but things not gaining any traction. I don't think, frankly, it makes sense for either side to lock into an extension, because as much as the Brewers saw flashes from Jacob Mizraowski throughout the year, certainly his first several starts, certainly in the postseason, there were also some, concerning struggles there as well. There is still a little bit of that reliever risk with him. So it doesn't make too much sense from the Brewers side to lock into someone who's pre-arb for the next couple of years. I mean, Mizraowski did not gain a full season of control. They have him until the end of the 2031 season. Okay, so they've got plenty of time with Jacob Mizraowski. They're not too worried about any of it. They got 6 whole years left before he hits free agency. So maybe more likely, if he doesn't sign an extension, maybe more likely 5, and before they trade him, because that's just how the Brewers are going to end up having to roll. But still, you've got until the end of the decade here with Mizraowski at the very least. So it doesn't make too much sense from the Brewers side to rush into an extension with a pitcher unless they can get him on a team-friendly deal like they did with Freddie, like they did with Aaron Ashby. Now, for Jacob Mizraowski, why would he do that? Why would he sign a team-friendly deal when he is one of the top prospects in all of baseball when he came up, and clearly one of the top young pitchers of the game, one of the most high-octane arms in the game? If he keeps pitching like this and he stays on track as a starting pitcher going into the future, he's someone who is going to have incredibly high earning potential. He is going to get big-time money in arbitration. He's going to get a big-time contract in free agency, provided he, again, stays as a starter, keeps his stuff, stays healthy. He's going to get big-time money there. So it doesn't make too much sense from his perspective to accept a lesser deal and sign a team-friendly deal for the next couple of years and buying out his arbitration. It makes more sense for him probably to look at just arbitration and what he can get there. And again, unless he can get something like Spencer Strider, where he locks in $75 million through these pre-arb years and arb years, because in all likelihood, he's not going to be getting that much through arbitration and pre-arb. So unless he can get that, it doesn't make much sense for him to do it and delay his free agency a little bit. Even if just by 1 year, that can mean a lot when it comes to pitchers. So I don't think it makes much sense for either side to look at an extension right now. So that's why, again, too, I'm not really surprised that these talks have not gained traction, that things have not really moved anywhere. And also, too, what adds into another report that we saw over the last couple of days is that you have the Brewers that are concerned about their payroll, allegedly. Now, granted, you see this report from Ken Rosenthal and a couple of people in The Athletic that, the Brewers are concerned about payroll and they're having to, keep things tight. The Brewers are always concerned about payroll, okay? That is a major factor because they are the smallest market in all of baseball, okay? This is not new to us. This is not new to the Brewers to have to be concerned about their payroll. They have made moves year in and year out regarding their concerns about payroll. None of this is fresh. None of this is new. So to see, the Brewers are concerned about payroll. Yeah, of course they are. So, could that lead to a trade of Freddie Peralta? Freddie Peralta's making $8 million. Okay, for what he brings you, that's an absolute bargain. So I don't think they're entirely worried about Freddie Peralta and the payroll is so bad that they need to get rid of him. Now, another idea that Ken Rosenthal did mention was signing Brandon Woodruff to a multi-year deal to lower his average annual value from his qualifying offer of $22 million. Now, that's a possibility that I could see. The Brewers signing Woodruff to a 2 or 3 year deal instead of the 1 year deal, lowering the money that he's getting this year. Could absolutely see that being a possibility. They also raised the possibility that Trevor McGill perhaps could get traded. Now, he's set to earn around $4 million in arbitration, and that's something that's like, okay, well, you can find a closer for a little bit less because the Brewers have a couple of internal options that they can turn to and perhaps save a little bit of money there. But again, $4 million, it's not a ton, especially for a closer. That really ain't much because we've seen how closers can end up getting paid, which kind of brings to one of the big signings that we saw over the holiday weekend was Ryan Helsley. He signs a $28 million deal over 2 years with the Baltimore Orioles. So that number one, that takes one suitor out of the market potentially for Trevor McGill, and also for Devin Williams, because we saw the Orioles GM. He was talking about, hey, we're looking for a ninth inning guy, an experienced, proven ninth inning guy. And sure enough, they end up getting Ryan Helsley. So Devin Williams, former Brewers closer, out there on the free agent market. That's one potential landing spot that's now off the board because Baltimore has their guy. And Trevor McGill, if the Brewers were to potentially trade him, that's one potential landing spot off the board. Now, granted, there's still going to be a lot of other teams looking for ninth inning guys, looking for closers in this offseason. And there aren't that many proven ninth inning guys available. One more is just off the board, but also one landing spot's off the board. So there's other places to send McGill if the Brewers wanted to move in that direction, which is a very real possibility to help improve this club. When you have Abner Uribe waiting in the wings there as the closer, very real possibility. But yeah, Helsley makes his move. He's off the board. So yeah, we're seeing the free agent market start to move here a little bit as we're a week ahead of the winter meetings and just kind of closing things out. We'll see. We haven't seen the Brewers make a significant move yet. That may be coming. That may not be coming. We may not see the Brewers add a major league free agent for another month or so. It could be a while because the Brewers just again, they're concerned about that payroll. So they're going to wait probably for some of these prices to come down rather than paying top dollar for some of these top name guys. However, just because they won't be signing free agents or any top name free agents does not mean they won't be making trades. Does not mean that they won't be looking to improve their team that way. Whatever needs they have, wherever they may be looking, it may instead be the trade market that they have to look through, which that could happen any day, anytime. We could see these things come down, but especially at the winter meetings as those are coming up here next week. So very excited to be down there for those. I will be down in Orlando at the winter meetings, and we will have these shows from there, and you can enjoy those reports. So if you want to enjoy those shows from the winter meetings, be sure to hit that subscribe button and get notified every single time that a new episode drops, because we'll be dropping it every single day and keeping you covered here on your favorite team, the Milwaukee Brewers. And it's going to be a whole lot of fun to see what they end up doing coming up here very soon as the offseason continues. So that'll do it for this time, for this episode, and be sure to, again, subscribe and tune back in tomorrow for the next episode of Brewers Daily.